Okay, everybody, before we have our regular board meeting start up, we're going to have a reception for the foreign exchange students that are here with us this year. Terry, can you take over?
I sure can. Hey, good evening, and we hope you're all enjoying the reception. Had a chance to meet one another and mingle a little bit. This year we are delighted to have 20 students from 9 countries who are attending our high schools through various foreign exchange programs. 6 represent Germany, 5 are from Spain. We have 2 students each this year from Italy and Thailand, and 1 each from Finland, Portugal, Norway, the Czech Republic, and Japan. Now, we're so fortunate to be active with foreign exchange programs and excited to have these young people share time with us throughout the school year. The foreign exchange programs has many educational benefits. International learning and knowledge propel students towards acceptance and understanding of an array of different cultural and community perspectives. Language acquisition is achieved through practical immersion, and we heard from talking to a number of these people, you pretty much perfected English already, and you just got here. Awareness and adoption of alternative, multifaceted approaches to learning, and enhanced interest in global issues, as well as a broader general knowledge. From a personal standpoint, students experience self-development and awareness, leading to enhanced self-confidence and self-esteem. This is often the most noticeable change in return exchange students at the end of the year. Maturity and social poise, fueled by the necessity to confront challenges outside a familiar support network and comfort zone, is another feature. Integration into another family, as well as the development of lifelong friendships, fostering an appreciation of home and family. A tremendous sense of accomplishment upon completion encourages students to develop independent opinions, make informed decisions, and strive to attain fresh goals. It's clearly a win-win for the students and for our hosting families and our schools. We're going to have each student tonight kind of briefly introduce themselves, and so we can experience your wonderful accents and wonderful voices tonight. So we're going to pass the microphone and ask you each to tell us your name, your hometown, introduce your host family if they're here tonight, and maybe one thing about yourself, or one thing that's a little bit different about Chandler schools than your home school and so forth. One more thing to separate us a little bit. It could be a favorite hobby, or you're playing soccer, or whatever the case might be, but something kind of unique to you. And our board members have a pin tonight to present to you. If the board members would come down, and if all the foreign exchange students would come to the front of the room, I'm going to pass the microphone. So all the foreign exchange students, come follow me. This is much more fun when I pass the microphone than me trying to pronounce their names and getting them all wrong. So let's start on the far right here. You know the drill. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mariona. I'm from Spain, and I'm 14 years old, and I go to Perry High School, and it's in Gilbert. My house is in Chandler, and my host family, they are really nice. I have so much fun with them. It's so cool. And I'm just spending a really good time with them. And in Perry, I do sports. Today, I just finished my cross country. I'm injured. You can see it. But it was really cool. And I made a lot of friends. And yeah, I'm so happy with all of this exchange program.
Hello, my name is Christina. I'm from Czech Republic. I'm 17 years old, and I'm living with my host family. They are so nice. We live in Gilbert, and I go to school to Perry. I am really involved in track in my country, and here I do cross country with Mariona. It's really fun. Thanks to cross country, I met so nice people that I'm friends with, and I'm really enjoying my exchange year here. Olive.
So, hi everyone. I'm Greta and I'm from Germany. I'm 16 years old and I'm going to Becher High School with Maria next to me. So I'm staying with these two people over there. I love them. They're like my second family right now. I'm really grateful to be here, and I'm so nervous right now, but it's fine. So yeah, what can I say? I'm in different clubs at Basha, and I love all these people. Everyone is so nice to me and like talk to me, and the teachers are like so helpful. Yes, I think that's it right now.
Hi, I'm Maria. I'm from Portugal. I'm 17 years old. I'm going to Baixa High School. My host family is not all here, but there's Maria, my host mom. I love them. They help me with everything I need. My host sister is a big help with school and like the first days to meet new people. But I think I've met a lot of good people in my school. They're all really nice, and I've been planning on playing soccer because I have been trying to get into sports, but it's a little bit hard here. And I think, yeah, that's it. Oh, and I love the football games.
Well, my name is Jimena, and I'm from Spain. I'm 16 years old, and my host mom is over there. I definitely enjoy going to school here. It's a whole different experience from like what school is like in Spain, and I do love the football games. That's something we do not get over there. And I've met a lot of like wonderful people. Everyone is like so nice to all of us, I think. And I'm definitely looking forward to getting involved in more of like the extracurricular activities, because I feel like that's a really good way to get to know more people. And I guess that's it.
Hello, my name is Asa Saito. I am an exchange student from Japan, and I'm 16 years old. And I go to Pei High School, and I really enjoy the school life with friends. And I join marching band, and we have a competition on every Saturday. And yeah, it's my favorite. And my host family are so good, and host brother is there. uh, I will do my best to improve my English more.
Hi, I'm Goki from Thailand. I'm 16 years old. That's my host family and mom and dad. They are so nice to me. Thank you. I do choir in school. The people here is so nice, and I try to get a lot know more people. And the choir is really fun. I like singing, and I'm gonna join the band next semester to like get know more people and try to find activity to do more. And my host family, they like to take me to like travel, hiking on weekend. Like we have so much fun. Thank you. Yeah, I will try my best. Thank you.
Aren't these kids delightful? How about one more round of applause for all these kids? It's such a pleasure to have you at our schools this upcoming year and continuing all year long. And can we also have all the host families please rise? We want to thank you for hosting. It's a huge obligation. We understand that and appreciate you helping make our schools that much richer. Thank you so much. Now, you can't leave today without taking some more snacks. You saw we have lots of sweet stuff out there, and my belt line can't handle it tomorrow morning, so I'm hoping you'll take that. And again, I want to thank you all for joining us tonight, and have a great evening.
Okay, thank you, everybody, for coming. We're going to get started with roll call first.
Barb Marsden, Jason Olive,
Here.
Laura Bruner,
Here.
Lindsay Love. You'll have to say it.
Oh, she can hear us, though. She's here.
I can't hear her well, but did you call Lindsay?
Yes, we did.
Okay,
Thank you,
here.
Lindsay. Yes. Here. Okay, thank you. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance. Thanks, everybody. Okay, as you guys can see, Barb is not here. She's on the way in, so I'm going to do my best at keeping us moving along tonight. So please forgive me if I stumble as I go along. First thing to do on the routine business is to approve the minutes of the October 13th regular board meeting.
I recommend we approve the minutes.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Okay, that carries. Second thing, we need to ratify and approve accounts payable vouchers.
I move that we ratify the payroll and accounts payable vouchers.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, that carries. Correspondence. Is there any correspondence for this week, Mr. Narducci?
Vice President Olive, there is no correspondence. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next, we have a bond and override update from Mrs. Berry.
All right, Mr. Vice President, Mr. Olive, and members of the board. Tonight we're going to talk about our M&O override and bond review. Now, this is a public hearing, so it allows you to ask questions and then actually for the public to be able to make a comment. It's a requirement by statute, and we're going to cover that in just a minute. So a few things to talk about. We are going to explain the reporting requirements because there is some statutes that require us to report on both overrides and bonds. We're going to go over the history of our override. We're going to talk about the expenditures related to the 2017 override, the 2015 bond, and the 2019 bond. We're going to talk about the projects that we've already completed and some of the projects that are planned. And if you have any questions about those, myself and Mr. Fletcher are available to answer questions on those. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the capital planning process. There's some requirements to the School Facilities Board that we have to do, but then also just what our annual process is and some of the things that we take into consideration each year when we go through this process. So right off the bat, Arizona Statute 15-481, Y and K, if you want to look that up to see those requirements, require us to hold a public meeting. So the things that we are required to cover in under the statute are the maintenance and operations override. What do we spend it on? What did we spend it on? What we're currently spending it on? Our bond proceeds, because we have proceeds that we spent in the fiscal year. So we have two bonds, the 2015 bond that we're just wrapping up and the 2019 bond that we're right in the middle of. And then for us, we talk about the future capital projects to explain what we are coming up upon in the near future. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that also to kind of include everything. So our override history, as most of you know, we've had an override in place for 3 decades. And back in the first couple of decades, we had a 10% override. And the statute only allowed us to have a 10% override for K through 12. There was also an ability to have a 5% override for K through 3. Our district had just had the K through 12 override for 10% in place up until 2013. In 2013, we took advantage of the override and we increased that to 15%. Our voters approved that. And so that was increased from 10 to 15%. And in 2017, we renewed that as a continuation of the existing override from 13. And then in 2021, currently right now, we are asking the voters on November 2nd for a continuation of the existing override. So just remember on overrides, they don't stack upon each other. When one goes away, the other one begins. So they don't stack one on top of the other. Most of us in this room don't know what it looks like to not have an override in place, because for us, we've had an override in place for 3 decades. So extremely important for our school district. The current override that we have in place that was approved in 2017 was approved by our voters in November of 17. It's fully funded for 5 years. A lot of people have questions about that because the statute shows that an override is good for 7 years. It's fully funded for 5, and then in year 6, it gets reduced by 1/3, in year 7 by 2/3, and by year 8, it's gone. Our district asks the voters every 4 years to renew our overrides. In case that it does fail, there's an opportunity to go back to our voters to ask again if they'd like to continue that without losing for approximately $14 million. So for us, every 4 years, we go back and ask our voters to approve an override. Again, it doesn't stack on top of each other. This year's override would go away if the voters approved in 2021 in November, on November 2nd. If they approve the override this year, it will go into place next year. The 2017 would go away. The renewal dates are just listed down there below. All right, so in the 2017 pamphlet, you can go back and always review our override pamphlets for information, and you can see that the budget for the 2017 override was $35 million in the first year. Then if it's approved, it renews every year based on your revenue control limit, so which is made up of students and miles driven. That's ultimately how your budget is created. So as our district has been growing, our number for our override has grown because the number of students in our district has increased. So that's why the amount increases each year, except for last year with a reduction. We get funded on the prior year ADM, so not on current year, but prior year for this formula. So back in 2017, the voter pamphlet showed $35 million. The tax rate was approximately $1.34. And then our annual expenditures for that year, we actually, our budget overall in 2019-20, our budget was $39 million because our ADM increased. Our tax rate was approximately $1.33. And then the next year, our expenditure budget for 2020, 2021 was $41 million. Our annual tax rate was $1.30. And then this year, our expenditure budget related to the override was $40 million. Our tax rate is $1.18. Now, why is there a difference in the expenditure budgets? Is because our ADM has decreased. And it was based on last year's ADM. Overrides they're based on the prior year, not on the current year, which is different than current year funding. A couple things about why did the tax rates change in that. The tax rates are based on assessed values. Our community's assessed values have been continuing to increase, so therefore that tax rate therefore decreases if your assessed values go up compared to the amount that you're collecting. Those change slightly back and forth, all based on your assessed value. So it depends every year based on what the assessed value is. For our district, the assessed values keep going up, so therefore you're starting to see that slight decrease because of assessed values. The expenditures. Now remember, our voters approved this in November of 2017, which was the fiscal year 17-18, so it comes into play the next year. So it's the budget's 18-19 in a sense, then fiscal year 19-20, then 20-21, and then this year we're in 21-22. So for 4 years, we've had our override in place, and ultimately it funds the things that are reported in the voter pamphlet. And the things that were voted on were to help ensure academic programming that remains at the same level, to provide competitive salaries, to help retain and attract highly qualified teachers and staff. We continued instruction in the areas of technology, STEM, physical education, athletics, fine arts, and electives. And then it was to promote a safe and healthy school environment. As you can remember, in 2013, the change that was made from the 10% to the 15%, the only thing that changed in 3 decades was the ability to hire security officers for that last bullet where it talks about promote a safe and healthy school environment. We have security officers K through 12. That was extremely important after the national crisis of Sandy Hook took place, if you can all remember that. And our families, just like me, I'm a mom. I think that comes first, is you want to make sure that your families are safe. And so one of the things that we did was we used those additional dollars to hire security officers. But besides that, all of those areas of retaining and attracting quality staff, making sure we have quality programs, class sizes, all of those things have been in place since this began 3 decades ago. The voter pamphlet that voters received in the mail back on October the 6th, most voters who are registered in our 80 square miles, depends on where your boundaried schools, you could be in Chandler, Gilbert, or Queen Creek. If you're in our 80 square miles and you're a registered voter, you received a pamphlet this year in 2021 for it asking for a continuation of an existing 15% override. So it's the same override that we've had in place, not a new override, just a continuation of the existing. The same types of things are being, we will fund the same things. We're going to make sure we have safety features. Again, those district security officers are in place, and they're going to continue to stay in place. Maintaining respectable class sizes, that's extremely important. As you know, 90% of our maintenance and operations budget is salaries and benefits. So ultimately, the respectable class size is important because we want to have staff members in front of those and keep those class sizes small. To help the district attract and retain quality teachers, as you all know, we want the best staff we can get in front of our students, extremely critical for their outcomes and to serve them the best we can. To enhance technology services across the district, even if it's with teachers or the services that they receive. To fully implement the programs related to our long-term strategic plan. To reduce the district's need to eliminate effective programs and services of students, and to provide professional development for teachers to increase student achievement. All of those are listed in the voter pamphlet. They're very similar to what we've had for 3 decades. All right, now moving on to the 2015 bond. Now remember, a bond is very different than an override. A bond is about those big ticket items. They're the buildings, the buses, and the technology. A lot of people mix that up between an override and a bond. An override, a maintenance and operations override, is about people and programs. It's our maintenance and operations budget. It can't be spent on buildings and buses and technology, where bonds can be very different items. People get those confused all the time. Ultimately, our bond in 2015 was $196 million. Majority of that was in construction, acquisition, and improvements to our existing schools. We also had $53 million in renovations and site improvements. We had a chunk set aside mostly for in the areas of furniture, equipment, and school furnishing, and school buses, and technology and buses. That's where majority of the money was for that $39 million. Renovations to support facilities. You have to break that out in a different line item by law because it's different than an academic building. So if it's a support building, like for example here, the administration building, transportation, the instructional resource center, any of those buildings have to be broke out different than an actual school. So that's separate. So that's why you see the $4.7 million. That was actually for transportation at that time. And then technology, furniture, and equipment for support facilities. Again, if you buy equipment or technology for a building that's not academic, it has to be in a different category. So that was how it was broke out, $196 million. It was approved by our voters in 2015. You can see kind of from this pie graph, if the gold and then the kind of cream color, the lease payoff and the non-administrative construction and improvement, which means schools. Majority of our money was spent obviously on our facilities, our schools, and that's through construction, renovations, all those projects. I'm going to go through a list of the big projects that we completed. About 9% was on pupil transportation, small amount on administration F&E, small amount on administration construction. That's actually related to transportation because that gets lumped into that category. And then non-administration furniture and equipment, that would be our schools, technology, computers, those pieces, 11%. So a couple of the projects, and we're going to go through those in a minute, but overall on the projects, you have 6 areas that are voters approved. They've approved 5 areas plus bond selling costs are allowed underneath when you sell bonds. 5 areas that our voters approved on. In that, you can spend over 10% in a category. So out of $196 million, you can move $19.6 million within the categories. That allows you, because when you originally put estimates together, you're not sure where those expenditures come. So they were broke out. Overall, we spent a little bit more in pupil transportation than originally budgeted. We took some money from some of our construction that we saved on and some of the F&E from our schools, and we were able to build the transportation facility that we built in our district that's in the southern part of our district. Those are the main changes that took place. We also took the lease payoff that we had, and some of that we moved up also into the construction item for our transportation facility. Some of the projects that were completed, there's 2 pages of this. To start out with, a lot of the construction. In 2015 and on, we've still had a number of construction projects as we've grown in our school district. Phases 2, 3, and 4 for Castile High School were funded out of the 2015 bond. We are very fortunate to have the School Facilities Board dollars. Over the last, I think, 5 or 6 years, we received about $80 million in all of our projects from the School Facilities Boards that our bonds did not have to pay for. And ultimately, the rest was supported through the local voter initiatives with our bonds. So Phase 2, Phase 3, and Phase 4 of Castile High School. We were also able to add on additions to Auxerre and Basha High School, Chandler High School, a couple of our CTAs, CTA Humphrey, our Santan Junior High, Hamilton High School, Perry High School. As you know, our high school population continues to grow as you listen to the demographer report. It's been growing for the last handful of years, and we were able to accommodate for that. We also were able to build Elementary 31, which is Rice Elementary. The Chandler Online Academy was built on the Willis campus, if you've been out there to see that, and the Chandler Learning Center, so we were able to serve some of our special needs students back here instead of having to transport them out to other campuses. We also purchased land to build our 2 new schools, our elementary and our high school. We built the transportation facility. We renovated Weinberg Elementary to a new gifted academy, replicating the services of Knox Elementary that has been so successful. We also were able to replace flooring at a number of our schools, and as you all know, we're up to 5.5 million square feet, and with that comes a lot of renovation, right? Just like a home. As it ages, all of those things start to need to be replaced, and Mr. Fletcher and his team replace items such as flooring, electric, special systems, roofing, all of those in phases. So these were the schools that got replaced for flooring. We purchased 97 school buses and retired some of those. We bought 50 activity buses, and an activity bus allows us to not have to have a CDL driver, but ultimately use what we call a white fleet type of vehicle to transport our students, so that if you have activities and athletics, sometimes we can use those instead of having to use our yellow fleet, and we can save those for our routes that are so important to get kids to and from school. We bought a number of student computers. We call COWs, or Computer on Wheels, for our district. We updated our LCD projectors and document cameras across the district. We updated bathroom partitions at Chandler High School, football field improvements at both Basha High School and Chandler High School. We did a big project at Knox related to drainage and masonry improvements. If you've been on their campus, we spent a few $1 million improving that campus. It's one of our older campuses and needed some of those improvements. Sound system upgrades, we needed that at our elementaries and junior highs throughout our school district, because as those were put in, they're old and they weren't working. It's extremely important, as we have not only when we have meetings with our students, but for fire drills and for assemblies and for lockdowns. All of that's extremely important. The second page of the 2015 bonds that completed, a lot of small projects were done that aren't listed on here, but these are still the major projects. Fencing improvements across our district. As we have 1,000 acres in our district, and a lot of that has to be maintained. It's fenced, need to either be replaced or improved. District financial software, we switched from what was called Business Plus to Visions, a critical piece of our software system for the accounting side of the house that we implemented. We have wireless internet projects that we either upgraded or installed K through 12. We purchased an emergency generator here for the district office, so that's called an administration cost, but ultimately a generator to back us up if something were to fail, here to have that backup. Gym bleachers at Basha High School, Chandler High, gym flooring improvements, gym flooring improvements across. You can see most of our junior highs and high schools. Network equipment, as you know, as technology, we have more and more of that. We need more infrastructure related to our schools and inside our schools. Parking lots, as those get replaced. A lot of parking lot space and asphalt space, as you know. Playground equipment at Anderson and Jacobson were purchased out of the 2015 bond. Roofing at a number of our schools. Tracks at 2 of our high schools. Sand volleyball courts at Castile High School. Security cameras district-wide. And then district furniture and equipment everywhere from our food service, benches, to different classroom sets in schools that had been 30 years old that needed to be replaced or exchanged. So that's a number of projects that took place in the 2015 bond. Now going to the 2019 bond. We have spent the 2015 bond. The only piece of the 2015 bond we haven't spent is we're waiting for some of our buses to arrive. We're hoping they would arrive in December. We think they'll arrive in March. That's the last piece, and we'll finish out the 2015 bond completely. The 2019 bond is $290 million. Again, most of that's in construction, acquisition, additions, and improvements as we built 2 new schools. And then furniture and equipment for those schools and technology, and then construction, acquisition, improvements to administration facilities, public transportation vehicles, again, our fleet, our yellow fleet and white fleet, technology, furniture, and equipment for support facilities at $3 million, and then a lease payoff of potentially $6 million if we were to look at different options in the future. So you can see majority of all that money is really for our schools and our classrooms, 76% of that, 9% for transportation, a small amount for a lease payoff, and then administration fees, construction improvement is approximately 3%, and then furniture and equipment related to the schools, the 76% that goes into those schools at 11%. So overall, we have to track where we're at, completion projects, planned projects, the lease, and then ultimately where the SFB, the School Facilities Board, money came in, how much money we have for adjacent ways. As you remember, that is the one tax that the board can set related to adjacent ways for when we built new schools and you have to put streets in, you have to put lights in, and you have sewer that you're pulling to go to those schools adjacent to city property. We were able to tax for that and be able to include that in our capital planning. So you can see all of those dollars as they go through. Ultimately, we have $166 million left out of our $290 million. Some of the projects that we've completed so far, parking lots at Basha High School, Chandler High School, and Hamilton High School. We've also purchased a number of student laptops and computers on wheels. We put a new roof on Galveston, running tracks at our other 2 high schools, Hamilton High School and Perry High School. We put some turf in the center of Santan Elementary, or Santan Junior High Elementary, if you're in the courtyard and can see that when you're on campus. Fiber construction for wireless, blind replacements throughout Anderson Junior High, chillers, which are the cooling systems at 3 of our schools, Bologna, Hall, and Tarwater, fencing at Castile High School, heat pumps at Basha High School and Santan Junior High, lighting control systems for Hamilton High School Performing Arts Center, and then our server equipment that we've purchased. So a number of things so far that we've been able to do with the projects. Also, projects in process that we're finishing, as you know. High School number 7 out on Gilbert Road is almost complete. We're almost finished with that. So that's a major project that has been finished. Playground renovations throughout our elementary schools. K-6 security cameras, additional ones, and replacement of some that hadn't been replaced. Hamilton High School gym flooring. Sally ports, which are the entrance to our schools at our elementaries that didn't have an ability to check in people before they entered into our schools, especially some of our older schools who needed that, who were in the middle of campus or at a place where we had to hire a security officer to man a gate before they could come in. And then technology expansions on personal devices and servers. As you know, as we went through COVID and virtual, a lot of those we expanded further than what we had originally intended. Upcoming planned projects that we have we are currently doing is Hamilton High School kitchen and dining room area. We're trying to renovate that. We need a lot more to be able to facilitate the efficiency and effectiveness of our lunch program with a number of students who come into Hamilton High School, but we need to renovate that, bring in more power. There's other things that we need to accommodate for that. We have a central kitchen renovation that needs to be done. It was built, I believe, in the early 90s, and we need to update our central cook chill. There's a number of things that need to be finished. Our central kitchen is located right over here by Chandler Hospital, and so we'll be upgrading our kitchen and renovating that soon. Jacobson roof needs to be replaced. One thing that's been great is Frank and his team have been applying through the School Facilities Board for a number of grants. So anything that we can, we try to apply through the state for additional funding, and if not, then we utilize our bond dollars. We obviously will expand, continue to replace transportation fleet, expand. You're going to see tonight there's some activity van purchases on the board agenda as we grow in our high school arena especially, but also on our transportation, the number of students that we're transporting. More playground renovations in our second phase will be coming, and then flooring at 3 more of our schools. So a number of upcoming projects. One thing that's important is to remember and to think about the tax rate always as we compare. We are very fortunate that we have an assessed value in our district for both residential and commercial property. And so our tax rate, Gilbert's is slightly less than ours at a total of 6.02. Ours is 6.07. You can see all the way through Tempe, Higley, Tempe Union. And remember, Kyrene District is in Tempe, and then there's Tempe L, and then all of it comes together for Tempe Union. So that's why you see Tempe, Kyrene, Tempe, Tempe, is because you have Tempe L with Tempe Union, and you have Kyrene Elementary with Tempe Union. So that's why you see it that way. A couple things. Partly, why is there a difference when you see overrides? When everyone has a 15% override, why is the tax different? It's all based on assessed value. You can only go up to 15%, but it's based on the assessed value. So if you are more of a bedroom community, then you're going to have a higher tax rate because you don't have as much assessed value. If you have more commercial and residential properties, you're going to have typically a less of a tax rate because you have more properties to tax versus a bedroom community. Same thing with bonds. It depends on how many you've actually sold and what the dollar is, but again, it's still based on assessed value. So if you have less assessed value in your community, your tax rate's going to be higher. That's a lot of times why districts can't pass bonds and overrides, is because they have very small assessed values in it, and that changes the dynamic of that community. But our tax rate, second lowest below Gilbert Unified. One of the pieces, the reason this is important is the School Facilities Board. We are required to report to the School Facilities Board every single year. Our staff submits a report in, the board approves that. It's part of that. We were awarded, our last award from the School Facilities Board was related to high school number 7 for $35 million, and then $12 million for part of the land that was on that high school. The School Facilities Board that was submitted, we have to do a number of things. We don't have any new school. We don't even qualify for new school growth or new construction. We knew that high school 7 would be our last one, and we're projected for that. So we don't turn in any requests for new construction anymore, but we still have to give them an updated student population information. We have to give them all of our COVID numbers and our ADM information. And then we have to report that we have no new construction for new builds. So they go through that with their demographer, and then we go over renovation expenditures that we do plan for the future. So we're still required to do that even though we're not getting money for them for new construction. Part of what the annual capital planning process, since we are a large district, we have 5.5 million square feet, we have 1,000 acres that we take care of, and that's why when you know that we have 5,000 employees that are employed here in our district, 2,500 are teachers, 2,500 are support staff, and that's everything from transportation drivers, food service workers, maintenance workers, custodians, groundskeepers, psychologists, media specialists, all of those come together. But part of those employees are to keep up with our 5.5 million square feet and our 1,000 acres that we have. And so every year we need to make sure we're reviewing our square footage, our usage. So we look at past expenditures to see that. That's extremely important. We track all of our utilities every year. We manage that to make sure where we're at. That's why you see some of the replacements that we're starting to see with our air conditioning units and our systems in those areas. We have capital monthly meetings where we review our 2019 bond. We're finished with 2015 now, but we review the projects that are upcoming, what projects are in the future, and then what do we need to make adjustments to. That's with Mr. Fletcher and his team. And then there's a number of things that we're required to do. We're required to do some bond disclosure reporting. We need that for our bonds, and we also, to meet the statutes required to that, so we do a lot. We make sure that we have all of our bond disclosure reporting updated and filed annually. We make sure that we look at the demographers report, and you saw the report from last board meeting where Mr. Bramer and his team from Applied Economics, they review with us our updates with our ADM projections. Where is everyone? Where are the boundaries? How many kids are going to schools? Where do they project where those kids will go to school, so we know where we have space and don't have space? We also use our internal demographer information that we have from our internal staff and compare those. We also review what are our program needs, what are our grade level needs, what are our needs for our students with special needs, where do we need preschools, where do we need after school care for Kids Express. All of that is important to us as we're planning and preparing not only for renovations, but where do we put kids for the future. We also are doing something important. Mr. Fletcher is working on a study to help support when we replace everything related to roofs, HVAC, flooring, asphalt, our parking lots, all of that. Extremely important so that we're replacing those in timely fashion and able to support that. We go through a process called the MP 5000s, New Programs 5000s, and we address them in the spring. We ask not only our principals to give us information, but also we go through a list internally of what can we replace and what do we need to replace for the future. So all of this takes place throughout the year, and then we make decisions on what our capital projects will be for the next summer. Typically, we try to do it when students aren't here for our big projects as much as we can, and then when they're off, and we try to plan as best we can to renovate our facilities outside of building new facilities, which we've been doing in the past. So a lot goes into that process and a lot to continue with for the future, because we're not necessarily growing overall. Our 80 square miles are almost completely built out, but we have 5.5 million square feet that we have to maintain, and our community will expect to have quality schools that their students go to that are safe, that are renovated, that are upgraded, that are taken care of. So extremely important for the future. All right, what kind of questions do you have?
Thank you, Mrs. Berry. Very thorough explanation as to where we've been spending the money for the two bonds and the override. So thank you very much. Are there any questions from the board? Yes, Mr. Worth.
2 football fields. Were those the bleachers? Chandler High and Bash High?
We replaced the turf. We went from typical Bermuda to TIF 419. So
Same thing, both schools?
Yes, now, so all high schools are TIF 419.
Okay.
All right. And since this is a public hearing, are there any questions from the public? If so, could you wait? Could we, Mr. Holland, could we get a microphone out here? Oh, okay. Could you just come up to the podium then and ask your question? And if you want to just kind of queue up over there, if you do have a question, that would be great for anybody else, because I saw a couple other hands here.
Thank you very much. That was very comprehensive. I don't know how you did that in that length of time. That was amazing.
Thank you.
The question that I have, the contracts, who determines who's going to be able to bid on the contracts to do the various projects that we have? And who determines who wins those contracts, and how do they go about doing that?
I'm going to turn it over to our procurement officer, which is Mr. Fletcher. He'll answer that for you.
So we utilize a process called Construction Manager at Risk. It's a request for qualifications. There's a committee that evaluates all the responses based on experience, based on relationships with the district, and then that recommendation is forwarded to me and then to the governing board and superintendent.
Who's on that committee? Is that just, are they elected?
Typically, the law requires a general contractor and an architect, and then 3 district employees that are most familiar with our construction projects.
And then who determines who wins those?
The points, the one that's most qualified.
Oh, I see. Thank you.
Hi, Lana. I told you I wasn't going to ask any questions, but I'm gonna. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
So I see that we have in the bond, 2015 bond and 2019 bond. We had technology in both of those bonds. And then we also have technology in the override as an option. Can you explain to me the difference in the technologies and what they're for?
Yes, great question, actually. So remember that overrides are about operational expenditures. So 90% of our override goes to salaries and benefits and maintenance and operation. Technology services and M&O are things like our technology teachers who serve our elementary school students, or for maintenance and operation expenditures related to technology. They're not for capital items. So a bond is about buildings, buses, technologies, and books. So that's your actual computer, your infrastructure, your network system. So they're 2 totally different things. We know that we need teachers, we need professional development, we need technology, education technology for our staff. Those are operational costs. And then bond dollars are for those physical things that you see on the technology.
So the technology salaries are not part of the programming professors, teachers, right? That's not part of the normal salary?
So our overall, we have a technology team here, and actually Mr. Fletcher is in charge of that, and we have an executive director, Colleen Flannery, who's over technology. So we have a staff of technicians, programmers, and technical staff who are out at our schools, helping our schools. That is part of the salary base in maintenance and operations. So those staff members, and then we have technology teachers. We have a number of services for students. So maintenance and operations, salaries and benefits, all related to technology. So we don't go take a computer out of maintenance and operations. We don't take the infrastructure, the wiring, the hardware out of M&O. Only salaries and benefits or supplies that are related to technology that can't be coded to capital or bonds come out of M&O.
Okay. What does F&E mean? What is that?
Great, sorry about that. Furniture and equipment.
Okay, great, thank you. So also you talked about security. So there's also, security was also on the override. So can you explain the difference between that?
Sure. So we have a number of security officers. Before 2013, we did not have security officers at our elementary schools.
Okay.
Then Sandy Hook took place, which was a shooting that was very a national tragedy across our nation. And parents, one of the things when we asked our parents what their needs were, one of the most important thing they said was to have a safe and secure school. And so we added district-wide security across. So we have security officers from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade at all of our facilities.
And so those security officers, are they built into the current budget with the override in place?
They are. So how the override works is it becomes part of our overall maintenance and operations budget. It's not separated out into a line item. It becomes part of our overall budget. Our budget's $334 million. Approximately $40 million of that is M&O, but it's just part of our overall budget. So when we added that staff, we could add that because we had an increase from 2012 until 2013. So when we got that additional funding, we were able to it allowed us to hire that staff. If we didn't have that funding, we wouldn't be able to hire those security officers.
Okay, so we have the classroom site fund, which is also supposed to be for salaries, for performance pay, and for something else. I can't remember, right?
So yes, the classroom site fund is just for teachers, and it's for teacher compensation.
Okay.
The law has changed a little bit, but it's teacher compensation. And then there's 6 other areas that you can spend it on. For us, we've spent it completely on teacher compensation over the last handful of years and performance pay for teachers. But you can spend it on things like professional development, warrants, insurance, other things that are in that category. For us, we've spent that on teacher compensation and performance pay for teachers.
So when you say teacher compensation, do you mean salaries,
That's their
teachers' salaries?
It is, yeah. It's 7.6% of every single contract.
Okay, because the classroom site fund is broken out into 40, 20, 40, right?
20% for Fund 11, 40% for 12, and 40% for 13. That was not this year. That was the past. The law got changed this year. It's all in one fund this year, 100% in one fund.
Oh, really? Okay. And then when you look at the classroom site fund, and then you look at our budget, what we have currently for the salaries, right? So why, I guess I fundamentally don't understand why teachers' salaries are dependent on a vote. Right, so why, if they are the most critical components, okay, not to, knock you guys at all, right? But if teachers are the most critical components of our school system, why is their salary dependent on passing of this override? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, when we passed an override 3 decades ago, we asked to have more competitive salaries, and it's for all staff, not just teachers, but for staff. We wanted to make sure we maintained our class sizes, and we wanted to make sure we had quality programs that our families wanted. So when we passed that original override, I wasn't here, that was 30 years ago, so I was in grade school then.
Yeah.
But ultimately, 30 years ago when we did that, we put that into our salary schedule. So our salary schedules are based on having an override in place. So that money comes into our budget. We rely on it being in our budget so that we can have competitive salary schedules here in the East Valley. You can go look at other school districts. There's neighboring school districts. If you'd like, you can pull up, for example, maybe Apache Junction, and you can see where their salary schedule is. They do not have an override in place. We do have an override in place. There is a big difference between a salary schedule where you do have an override and one that does not. So we want to attract and retain the best quality staff we can, and we know that salaries and competitive salaries are important for us to have quality teachers. And as you know, the maintenance and operations budget from the annual financial report, 90% is salaries and benefits. We have 5,000 employees in our district. We have 2,500 of them are teachers, so half of our staff is teachers, and we're very much reliant. They don't know what it looks like to not have an override in place, because when you take $14 million away each year and then up to $42 million, the only way that you can reduce that budget from M&O is either to reduce staff or to reduce pay or do a combination of both. So for us, we infused that money into our salary schedules, which increased salary schedules and helped us retain quality staff, which we think gave us quality programs here that our families, to be honest, expect and want for their children, and they deserve.
So if we have, okay, sorry, I don't mean to belabor, but.
Well, we do. I think there were a couple other people who still had questions that I saw hands out here. Is there anyone else? Yeah. And so if you can, one more question, and then we need to move on to another.
Oh, now I forgot my question. Okay, go. Can she go?
Okay.
Go ahead.
This goes from before what you showed us up here, but approximately 7 to 10 years ago, I read in the Arizona Republic that they took the excess school bond money and used it to purchase land for ASU. Kind of freaked me out because they turned right back around and asked for additional bond money. I don't know what schools, districts that excess bond money came from, but I want to know if any of this goes to outside of this district for anything. If you ever have excess bond money, what do you do with it?
Okay, so great question. That cannot happen, what you just referred to. We can't go give ASU money for a bond project.
It was in the newspaper.
Yeah, I'm not sure where that or how that came about. We could look into that, but I've never heard of that off of my knowledge. I've been 22 years here in Arizona, but ultimately, the voter pamphlet describes where you have to spend your money, and you have to spend it in your district on the items that you state, and you have to purchase items within your 80 square miles. You can't, there's a lot of requirements of what you can and cannot purchase. So I'm not sure where that would be. I don't know of a school district who's ever done that, but we could look at that and find out, but
Okay.
I don't know of any that
Okay.
do.
And my other question is something that may have escaped your attention for a future expenditure is we have people now that want students to wear face masks at school. And we have this so-called virus that is so dangerous that it has shut down our entire economy, all the businesses, in fact, the entire world, kept us from meeting with our families, kept us from visiting people in the hospital, have to social distance. And nobody has ever mentioned purchasing hazmat containers for those despicable masks. If they're that dirty, if they're that contaminated, and this is such a dangerous virus, you're going to have to purchase hazmat containers and place them everywhere, and then also have that disposed of properly on a regular basis. You can't just throw that in the trash. You see them all over the ground at the supermarkets. So I think that's a big ticket item that may have escaped your attention.
The only thing I can respond to that is that we did apply for protective personal equipment through the federal government for supplies for some of our, because we do have a lot of cleaning materials and things that we've purchased through that process, and we tried to maximize any federal dollars that came in for that. We don't have a mask mandate here at our school district, but students, when they are finished with a mask, can throw it in the trash can. But we don't have any hazmat containers for that at this point, and we're not spending bond dollars on that. That wouldn't be a bond expenditure. That would probably be an operational expenditure, but that's not something
Okay,
we
I just
have in the
wanted to
budget.
remind you that if it became mandatory, then that would be prudent to place that everywhere you place masks and properly dispose of it. Okay.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions? Oh, yeah.
In there, you said that it was all spent on teachers. Where is it that we spend the money on the professional development and these outside conferences and the equity training and things like that. Where are we seeing that? And is there ever an opportunity for us to reallocate that money towards our teachers?
So if you were here for the annual financial report that I reported on last week, you can go through the expenditures. You can also look at the annual financial report. It goes through all the details on that.
Okay.
And I'm welcome to, if anybody, we have a massive system. It's almost $500 million worth of expenditures. So there's lots of line items, obviously, within our budget. But ultimately, 90% of our maintenance and operations budget goes to salaries and benefits. And like I said, we have 5,000 employees. We have 2,500
So the other
teachers.
10%, does it go towards these other programs?
It doesn't. It goes towards utilities. Nope. Majority, if you go back, you can see my annual financial report. You're welcome to look at that. It's on the site. There's a percentage that shows the amount that goes to utilities. So besides salaries and benefits, your next biggest percentage are utilities, which is your lights, your electric, your internet, your water. Then there's a small portion for supplies. Most of those supplies are your gasoline for transportation. There's a small amount for teacher supplies in that. And then there's a small amount, tiny amount for travel, purchase services related
So
to
when
that.
the school board invites the public to go through the budget in the future, are we able to allocate more money towards these teachers' pay or over the bonds and overrides and reallocate money from other areas? Is that the time we do that?
Yeah, so it's the budget process that goes through that. So
Okay.
every year, there's a budget that is approved in June, and then it's adopted in July. We go through what's called meet and confer with our teachers. So our teachers get to see all of the financial pieces. We go through all of how much money we spend in all areas. We review that with them. We go through a process in the spring, and then we bring back to the governing board salaries and raises related to
Great.
that.
Okay.
And then for the bonds, it's a little bit different, very separate items. You have to spend bonds on buildings, buses, and technology, not salaries and benefits. That's that capital process that we go through to renovations.
Sounds like we need to be really
constructions.
part of that. Thank you.
You're welcome. And you can be part of the budget committee. We'll start that this year again.
Okay, thank you. And if you do have any more questions, I would suggest that you contact, for any more additional details, please contact the business office and Mrs. Barry. You can call 812-7660 and or email her for that. One more question.
Okay. This might be a simple question, and maybe I look simple asking it, but I'm married to an accountant, and I have a budget. And when I go over that budget and I have to ask him to increase it, I can do that once or twice, but eventually he's going to say, you need to learn to live within your budget. You stood here tonight and proudly said you've been doing this for 30 years in this district. Why is it in 30 years you haven't learned to live within your budget and made the corrections you needed by cutting back where you can so that you don't need an override? I don't understand why in 30 years the budget hasn't been balanced so that you can take care of our children instead of counting on this override year after year. Can you explain that?
Yes, I'd love to. So I like to talk about numbers. So anytime any of you want to come in and talk about finances, would love to entertain that and talk to you about them, because I love to talk to people about it. I have 4 kids, and public education is important. They've got a great education out of it, so it's really important for me to have quality people around us, and that's what maintenance and operations budgets do. They allow us to spend money on people, and people are who we are. That's what our industry is part of. So maintenance and operations budget, it's really a budget increase. It's what the legislature sets our budget every year, and we get a state-imposed budget. They allow us to spend only so much. So an override allows us to exceed that budget by up to 15%. So it allows us to increase our budget by 15%. Now, if you were to go out and look at our numbers and my report from last week from the annual financial report, you can see how much we're spending per child. If you look, you'll see that in 2020, our district spent around $10,500 per pupil. The average here in Arizona for the 225 school districts was $11,600. So there's a difference between us and other districts. If you look at the national average, you'll see that in 2018, 2 years ago, the national average was $14,800. So a big difference, right? So we're 49th in the nation for funding. And so one of the reasons that we believe it's so important in our district to have an override in place is because we want to retain and attract quality teachers. And so we want teachers to come to Chandler Unified and work for us. And unfortunately, being 49th in the nation, you can look that up. It's on the Census Bureau. We don't have enough dollars to compete sometimes. And so allowing us to have 15% more allowed us to have better competitive salary schedules. It allowed us to minimize class sizes that you and I think are important in the programs that we choose for our students. It helped us make sure that our schools were safe and secure, and it helped us provide for those programs that we have. If you know, Knox Gifted had phenomenal awards. Weinberg, we have CTAs. Our high schools have STEM, AP, Bachelor International Program. We had $160 million worth of scholarships that were won by our college graduates, our high school graduates last year. We've won 224 state championships. We have our merit scholarships and Flint scholarships are the best in the entire state. So it goes to those programs. So that's what it's went to in the past, and that's where it's going to continue to go to in the future.
There's several school districts around the state and around town. Actually, you can go check out their schools and look at what, and they don't have overrides. There's in the middle of Phoenix. There's not Madison, but and not Phoenix L. Some of them in the south of Phoenix. There's some on the Indian Res that don't have overrides. There's some of them in the rural districts in South Arizona that don't have overrides, and they do get by on a little bit of money. But you need to go to Murphy School District and see what things look like when you don't have overrides. Murphy School District.
The comment that I would like to make is the override is horribly misleading. What you do is you get one opportunity, and then each year you have to approve that one opportunity. You don't get a second, you don't get a third, you don't get to put them on top of each other. It's one. And it's just a horribly misleading term. It just simply says you get 15%, and then every 5 years, you've got to go back and say, can we keep this? We don't get to increase it other than if we have more students. So it's just a misleading term.
All right, I think we're going to go ahead and move on to our next section, and that is our Student Body President Report. Havana Baez from Castile High School is going to tell us about what's going on at Castile. Hannah.
I would like to start off by saying thank you to the governing board and Mr. Narducci for having me here this evening. As you guys just heard, my name is Havana Baez, and I'm the student body president at Castile High School. This is going to be my first time presenting to the governing board, and I am very grateful to have the opportunity to show you all the incredible things going on in our school. I would like to start off by talking about the amazing homecoming week that our student council put on. Here are some pictures of our decorated hallways for the haunted homecoming week. Our student council worked tremendously hard over the first quarter to make these hallways come to life and to make the week that much more fun for students and staff. To start off our 4-day week of festivities, we hosted our annual Clash Wars. In this epic battle between grade levels, our student council organized activities from tug of war to races in these magnificent Zorb balls that you can see here. We had an incredible turnout, and our senior class won for the first time in Clash history. It was so wonderful to see the students having fun and working together, and it made everyone in student council that much more grateful to be back in person. Next up, we hosted a hypnotist show performed by Tyler Savage. It was so much fun for the audience, and especially for those who were able and willing to become hypnotized. One highlight of the night was when Savage introduced blow-up mallets to the hypnotized group and convinced them that each time you were hit with one, you would laugh harder and harder, not being able to stop. Next up, we had our homecoming football game, where students got to enjoy watching the crowning of our homecoming royalty, as well as watching 2 skydivers fly into the stadium to deliver the game ball. We had an abundant amount of participation with the costume theme, as you can see some of them here in this Where's Waldo style photo. This is our student section's designated Instagram. It is run by students to encourage spirit within our student body and attendance in any school sports events. It advertises games and the themes for them. Our student section for the homecoming football game even won the Arizona Student Section of the Week on the studentsectionreport.com. Lastly was the homecoming dance itself. We hosted our dance outside at Rock Point Church in their courtyard. Our DJ added a haunted house type walkway up to the dance as a fun and frightening surprise. We sold out our tickets, which maxed out at $1,500. The turnout was stellar, and it was clear that everyone had tons of fun. Next up, I wanted to go over some of the fall sports / fine art highlights. We started off the first quarter with our tradition of making individualized goodie bags for all varsity sports. Student council puts together these goodie bags containing granola bars and Gatorades to deliver to the fall sports on important game days. Our talented choir recently attended the AMEA Fall Choral Festival, in which the Castile Chorale, our concert choir, and our Dolce Choir, which is our advanced women choir, received a superior with distinction rating. Also, all 8 of our choirs were immensely happy to put on their first fall concert in 2 years. The choir advisor said that students and audience alike were moved by the gratitude felt for live music and the opportunity to make it together. Last Saturday, our band hosted the Castile Marching Classic competition. Their passion, along with hours of practice, led them to take 3rd place in the 1A division and earn the Auxiliary Caption Award. Next up, I would like to recognize our amazing theater program, who has been working hard to put on the fall play, which will take place next week. They have put on several shows this year, including other plays and their hilarious improv performances. This is our varsity women's volleyball team. They have a record of 11-4 and just recently enjoyed their senior night. There was a huge turnout and a heartwarming presentation to honor the seniors and all they have done for the team, as well as Castile in general. Another important highlight in this fall sports season is our swim and dive team. They had an outstanding first quarter and went undefeated for their whole season. This was due to hard work and determination that definitely didn't go unnoticed. Now I wanted to highlight our cross-country team. Our women's cross-country team is currently up for a state title and has beat the team that won state the last 2 years. Our men's cross-country team had to essentially build a new team this year and have been persevering to come together and succeed as a group. This is our Castile badminton team, whose record this year was 9-5 and were ranked 17th in the state. One of their team members, Haley Cuss, went to state, and she definitely deserved to be there. I wanted to share their motto as it really inspired me. We are strong, we are determined, we have strength. Here's a great shot of one of our football players. Our team's record is currently 4-3, and our football team continues to get our students excited about Friday Night Lights. Their next game is this Friday, and they will take on the Chandler High Wolves. This is just some of our school's unified sports team. They participate in a variety of athletic endeavors and continue to play hard and make Castile proud. Now we have our accomplished women's golf team, 5 of whom went to state: Kaylin Johnson, Raina Johnson, Sloan Longacre, Sierra Ashbout, and Jordan Cowing. Great job, ladies. Next is our men's golf team, who was ranked 13th in the state and played hard at all their competitions. Now I wanted to talk about a few things regarding our seniors. First off, we enjoyed a senior sunrise in which our culinary class cooked us breakfast burritos. We enjoyed music and food on our football stadium's bleachers and watched the sunrise on our last year of high school. Also, we sold lots of senior shirts, as seen in the picture, in order to raise money for future Stugo endeavors. We sold long sleeves, short sleeves, and hoodies, and it is so nice to have this memento to unify our senior class, as well as take away a memory from Castile. Now, I would like to introduce to you some of the most hardworking and dedicated people I know. I am so honored to work with each and every one of them every day. First up, we have Student Body Vice President Riley Stone, Student Body Secretary Ella Choi, Student Body Treasurer DJ Colborn, Student Body Historian Jenna Mitchell, our 2 Student Body Public Relations, Avery Dunn and Harley Finvick, our Spirit Commissioner Kendall Hudson, our Community Service Liaison, Ella Dudley, our Senior Class President, Trey Telfer. Our freshman representatives were unfortunately unable to attend tonight due to other commitments. Our sophomore reps, Audrey Barra, Samantha Harrison, Riley Martinez, Peyton Pekacek, Reagan Svensson, and then our junior reps, Diane Chege, AJ Gomez, Rosalind Hernandez, Macy Robbins, Riley Rustad, Keely Topol, Cadence Turner, and lastly, our senior representatives, Olivia Carrasco, Caleb Davidson, Samantha Deravan, and Katie Hawkins. I'd also really like to recognize 3 people who basically make everything we do possible, which is our 2 advisors, Mrs. Fredrickson and Mrs. Pisano. as well as our amazing principal, Mr. Phillips. Thank you so much for your time, as well as everything you do for our district. I hope you enjoyed hearing about what is going on over at Castile.
Thank you, Havana. We really do enjoy hearing about what's going on at Castile. And for the rest of your Stuco group, thank you so much for stepping up into leadership positions within your school. It really helps make the high school experience great, and you bring a lot of spirit and a lot of energy to your school. So thank you so much for participating and being such a great group. Appreciate it. Have a great evening. You're welcome. Thank you. Good job. We now have a special presentation this evening from Read on Chandler. Joanne Floth, who is the director of Read on Chandler, is going to present some information about a program to bring Story School to San Marcos students. Joanne?
Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much. I would like to introduce Jenny Volpe, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Make Way for Books. We have just recently received a $345 million grant.
Thousand?
Thousand. I wish million. I know. Wishful thinking after this wonderful. Thank you. 340.
Should we just say thank you, Read on Chandler, right now?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Go right ahead. This has been a project that has been in collaboration for probably the last 2-3 years. And it's been through the dedication of our partners within Read on Chandler and CUSD, which is a very integral part of the work that we do. When Jenny presented her proposal to us about 2 years ago, we had one of our principals step up, Dr. Becky Henderson, who said, I want this to come to my school. I want to be one of the first ones to take advantage of this. So we are just delighted to be able to say that we have done this. The grant is from the Arizona Community Foundation.
Joanne, could you move closer to the microphone so it can be picked up? We're live streaming this.
We're in our way. The grant is from the Arizona Community Foundation, and it will go over the span of 3 years. We will serve about 300 children within this grant, and specifically we are looking for families and children who are not currently enrolled in preschool programs. We know that the high-quality preschool programs that are available in Chandler are very limited as far as the number of children that can attend. So our goal is really to find those kids who don't have opportunities and provide them what would look like much like a mobile preschool program. And Dr. Henderson has again stepped up and said San Marcos is ready and willing. And looks like Jenny is ready. So I'm going to let her tell you. We reached out to Make Way for Books because we knew that they were the gold standard when it came to providing literacy resourcing within the state. They have some remarkable programs going on in Tucson and most recently in the West Valley and Avondale. And now they're expanding to Chandler. So
yeah,
Jenny,
thank you,
go ahead.
Joanne, and thank you, Governing Board. It's such a pleasure to be here tonight. So I wanted to share with you, since Make Way for Books is new to Chandler, first start off sharing with you about us and what this project that we're bringing to your district. So Make Way for Books is an early childhood literacy nonprofit. We've been around for 23 years, and each year we provide proven early literacy programs to improve children's literacy outcomes. So we work with very young children birth through age 5. And what we're really known for, as Joanne shared with you, is really coming up with innovative solutions to help our all children, but particularly children coming from economically disadvantaged backgrounds, to really get that leg up. And so we're very excited about the work we do, because what we know is true, it's true here in Arizona, throughout a lot of our communities, is that children who come from low-income homes actually start kindergarten behind, sometimes up to 2 years behind in language. And you all, I know I'm preaching to the choir here. I feel as a district, you truly understand that pivot point of third grade reading. And to get to successful third grade reading, you really have to start early. So that's what we are all about. And so we always like to say starting early impacts everything, because what we know now is the science behind that early reading. And so during those first 5 years of life, we know 90% of a child's brain development actually happens. And so when kids are read to, they develop the kind of circuitry that makes them great readers later on. And so what we do is, you can see here, it's a very funny picture. Hopefully it makes you smile. We get out into the community and really start to meet families where they are. And so we call it a neighborhood school readiness model, because we're really partnering with communities like yours. And so we center all the work. You can see the little red schoolhouse in the center, at and around elementary schools that have low third grade reading and high poverty. And so we really come together with the community to provide a strategy that works for families. So what we're bringing here, as Joanne said, is it's called Story School. So what it is, it's a 2-generation program, which means what it sounds like. So there's a parent and their child, or a caregiver and their child, learning together. And so every week, families come to the school and other community locations, and they participate in Story School. So this is Anastasia. I don't know if you can notice her outfit. She put this together because she wanted to wear her own uniform that matched her older sister in 2nd grade who was going to school. So this is what will happen at San Marcos. So we'll have families that have school-agers, that have little ones at home, able to come to the school every week and learn with us. And so we'll have children like Anastasia that really take their school seriously, right? For them, this is their school. And so this is what it looks like. So we have very talented people called family literacy specialists. And so it's run like a cohort model, like a class. And so parents and kids are learning together. And what parents really quickly learn is that they have this power, this incredible power to be a partner in their children's learning. And so they quickly see that there is so much that they can do to support their children's learning. The work is truly multi-generational. If you look at this picture, you have first cousins, so those are sisters that are mothers, and then their grandmother. So families come and join as multiple generations. And we're really proud to partner with our school districts, because for many families, this might be their first introduction to their school campus. And so we take great pride in partnering with our schools to provide a very welcoming experience. So kids get 20 books that participate in this program. They get a backpack full of supplies. And the books that we choose are chosen very intentionally to really represent the families that we're working with. And we have, I don't know, how many of you have read to young children in your life before? Yeah, okay, good. So you know that some children's books are funny. There's an aspect for an adult as well as the child, right? And so we try to choose books too that speak to and can build community among the adults. We also design the activities so families get to share quickly about their hopes and dreams for their child. And we also developed a free bilingual early literacy app so that families can extend the learning outside of class. And so we're really proud of this app. It's been recognized nationally for its ability to really set children up for success. So it's free. If you do have little ones in your own life, you can go to the Apple Store or Google Play and download it. Just look up Make Way for Books. And so this experience transformed families like Andrea's. And these are we're hoping to have similar stories here in Chandler. So if you look up here, you can see what Andrea's mother sort of shared about this experience. So we met Andrea when she was just 3, and her family couldn't afford preschool, like many families. In fact, 3 out of 5 families in Arizona have no access to preschool prior to kinder. And so Andrea came with her mom. Her mom is Karina behind her every week to their school. And she quickly learned that she loved reading. And she got books like that. That's her favorite one. There's a bird on your head. And what her mother learned, you can see here. Her mother quickly learned that she had what it took to help her child, even though she had struggled in school herself. So you can just look at the bottom. She learned and I learned too. I struggled in school and reading was not fun for me. This is not the case for my daughter. She has a love of reading. I tell everybody about this. It's a gift to get this power, to know your own ability to help your child learn. So, and this is Andrea. Can you see the title of her book? She wrote this book. It says the world is mine. So she wrote this book just before she started kindergarten. And in the book, she has this line that says, "Books speak my heart." And so kids like Andrea that have really been given these super positive foundational experiences, she's ready to take on kindergarten. She's ready to take on the world. She wants to be a writer when she grows up. And now, fast forward, she's in 3rd grade. She's above grade level in reading, and she's actually writing currently now a story for our app. So that's the kind of stories that we're able to make together when we partner with our school districts and amazing partners like Read On Chandler. So here's some of the data. You are district folks, and the data is important. It's important to us. So we do this because we know we can make an impact both immediately and in the long term for children. So based on a sample of kids, we know that 75% that participate go on to score at or above benchmark in reading in kinder through 3rd grades. This is what a superintendent, assistant soup, had to say down in Tucson, kind of about the experience. And so where it adds value to a district is that for many schools, if there is a preschool, or maybe there's one preschool, but that preschool can serve only 16 children, that's where we come in. And we provide a way to reach children that don't have access to preschool. So we're filling a gap for a lot of schools to help them get their children started and get going to achieve their literacy goals. So why does this work? Well, it's all about empowerment. As you saw in the story of Andrea and her mother, the strategy is 100% strength-based, and we really care about helping parents really learn their ability to know that they have this ability to positively impact their child's learning. So I'm going to skip some of this in the interest of time and turn it back to just to share with you a little bit more of the outcomes. So in the immediate, our children gain, 98% gain what are called emergent literacy skills. And that's kind of if you think about that, that's everything from letter knowledge, as you would imagine a child needs to learn to associate letters and sounds, to things, higher level skills like comprehension and narrative skills that allow them to be a great reader once they start learning to read. There's a big emphasis on vocabulary because all the research says that if you want to truly ensure that a child becomes a great reader down the road, you have to spend a lot of time helping that child develop a vast oral vocabulary. So we've really honed in on that. Our kids actually score above national norms in terms of vocabulary. And then there are impacts for parents as well. So 98% of parents gain skills, tools, and confidence to support their child, and 99% of families feel more connected to other families. So you can imagine the experience is really powerful because parents get to meet one another, and these might be parents that are isolated, and they get to form a peer group. And so families, like you heard me tell Andrea's story, they're still friends with these same families 6 years later. So they raise their children together, and it becomes a very positive and empowering experience. So we're here tonight because we're so grateful, as Joanne said, that we've just won a grant from the Arizona Community Foundation to bring this here. So the project has a long history of success, and so we're very grateful to be able to serve over 3 years, at minimum 300 underserved young children in the San Marcos community. Joanne, do you want to share some of this?
You bet.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. So one of the reasons why we brought Make Way for Books to Chandler was because we do have a significant amount of children who are starting school behind. And as Jenny said, once you start behind, you tend to stay behind. So you can take a look at the 2 zip codes that we are focusing in on. And within those 2 zip codes, we have about 7,000 children. When you look at the high-quality preschools in, for instance, just one of those zip codes, 85225, you can see they were really only serving about 204 children. So that leaves quite a few children that do not have some of those great experiences that Jenny was talking about. So our goal at Read On Chandler is to make sure that we even change that percentage up there from 70% to 100% of children starting school ready to succeed, ready to learn how to read, and such. When we started Read On Chandler, we looked at all of the programs that are currently serving literacy type resources. We can see that we've done a pretty good job on raising awareness. We know parents know how important it is to work with their children, how important it is to be good readers. But when we get to the point of where we're actually changing behaviors, we know that we have to do some more intense type programming, which is why we asked Make Way for Books to come in and provide that high quality sort of mobile preschool programming for those kiddos. We know that interventions are costly. We know that Chandler considers themselves an innovation city, as well as Chandler School District considers themselves as very innovative. So why spend money on intervention when if we can really make an impact at that beginning of the school experience, so that that money can be spent on innovation through good readiness strategies. So we are excited to be here. We're excited to have Dr. Henderson as a partner. Anything you want to add, Becky, at all to?
I think you guys have covered it. It's amazing. I'm so excited. I can dance.
And she did. She said she did her happy dance when she found out the great news. So we're delighted to be here. Look forward to hearing from all of you, and we hope that you hear from us as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much. We are excited to have your program in the schools. And Becky, you're like, I know you've been involved with this for a couple of years now, as well as some other of our staff. Leo, I believe you've been involved, and we've had former board members and city council members and everything else involved too. So thank you so much.
You bet. Thank you.
Next, we move on to our citizen comments portion of the meeting, and Mr. Terry Locke is going to present our online comments for this evening.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, and Superintendent Narducci. As a courtesy, we provide an opportunity for the public to submit citizen comments electronically on any topic. We have heard from 8 people since our last board meeting 2 weeks ago. Our feedback centered on 4 topics this time: health and safety, mask and mitigation strategies; 2, thanks to the governing board; 3, curriculum and instructional programs; 4, governance and governing board. Submitting comments electronically provides our governing board members time to read and prepare prior to the meeting. This format also provides the board an opportunity to ask clarifying questions to the administration. You have the submissions verbatim for your consideration. They're also available on the website for public review.
Thank you, Mr. Locke. And now it's time for the public to comment. Members of the board may not discuss items that are not specifically identified on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to ARS 38431.01H, action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to review the matter, responding to any criticism, or scheduling the matter for further consideration at a later date. I also urge you to respect every single speaker this evening. We have 8 speakers, and you will have 3 minutes. First one up is Mr. Roars.
Thank you. My name is Kurt Roars. I'm a parent in this district. In the consent agenda from the last meeting on October 13th, the board approved removing language from policy GCH, professional and staff orientation, policy IMB, teaching about controversial and sensitive issues, due to a recent court decision regarding its constitutionality. These policies refer specifically to the prohibition of teaching and training CRT type racist doctrine. What was missing from the discussion was that the court decision was based on a procedural issue and specifically deferred on the content of the statute. The case will now be heard by Arizona State Supreme Court on November 2nd, where it's quite likely to be overturned since they ignored longstanding precedent. The district may then have to reverse their action on these policies, reinstate them, and begin to enforce them. There was no legal obligation for the district to revoke these policies regarding the teaching of this divisive and controversial material. It was not contrary to any Arizona statute. The implication now pushed forward by a small radical minority that supports teaching this racist doctrine is that the district, in spite of multiple public statements to the contrary, will now allow it to be presented in classrooms and teacher trainings and take no action against teachers and staff that present it. Your parents do not want this. Many of your teachers and staff don't want this. The community doesn't want this. You let them all down. This district must make a decisive and unequivocal stand against teaching CRT type doctrine as was defined in these revoked policies. We expect you to stand on principles to make sure that racism dies the lonely death that it deserves. And as long as I'm up here, there's an action item on your consent agenda, 10.07, regarding the paying of an invoice to the National School Boards Association, NSBA, for $8,620. Many state organizations and school districts across the country are disengaging with the NSBA based on their controversial letter describing parents as domestic terrorists and directing the Department of Justice to take action. You should too. There is absolutely no reason to support these people, and you should take a decisive and principled stand on this as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roars. Our next is Nicole Eidson.
So, hi, my name is Nicole Eidson. I'm here to talk about the SEL that you guys have in the schools. So, SEL on the face sounds great, but when you start digging into the data and the resources that are behind the SEL, particularly, and I only could dig into the one that you have, a second step, which is sent out to half of the elementary schools. So half the elementary schools use this second step curriculum for social emotional learning. And right there on the second step webpage, there's a tag that says resource for educators, anti-racism and anti-bias resources. You go onto that page and there's links like Facing History and Ourselves. This is an excellent free resource for all teachers who want to integrate anti-racist lessons into their classroom. It is particularly well suited for history and social studies teachers. There's also a link for there's also a link for an organization called Learning for Justice, which has a decidedly very divisive message saying teach hard history. You know, slavery is hard to teach about for all these reasons. And I'm not agreeing with that. Slavery is a complicated topic and needs to be discussed. But when they say because of legacy of racism and white supremacy, right, that is still with us. That in itself is teaching critical race theory. It is still in our schools. Last school board, somebody said, I won't name any names, explicitly, there is no CRT in our schools. It is too complicated to teach. It is a law level class. So why is it that this class is targeting our elementary students and teaching elementary that racism and white supremacy is still with us? There's also a new term out there called culturally responsive teaching, okay? Ironically, the acronym is the same, CRT. And ironically, it gives the same message. It's just not called critical race theory anymore. It's called culturally responsive teaching. We need to stop all of this sort of divisive teaching and teach the kids to judge people on the content of their character. Thank you.
Melanie Rettler from Queen Creek.
Hi, my name is Melanie Rettler. I'm a veterinarian. I was a former teacher in Phoenix Union High School District. I'm a cloning expert with 35 years experience, and I was a consultant to the CDC. I've owned a pharmacy. I want to tell you that this vaccine, this COVID vaccine, is a deadly poison. That's it. I'm just going to tell you that. Everybody that takes it is damaging their immune system, and they're talking about this being given to children now. It's going to destroy them. You need to do more research on it. I'm an expert on it, and I'm telling you, that's what it's doing. All right, the next topic is the CRT. I agree with what both of these people said, but you know what? If you want to talk about racism, if you want to bring it in, then let's bring it in. Let's get to the bottom of it. You're talking about white supremacy. Okay, let's get to the very bottom of it. Every one of these things, the deep state, the cabal, the swamp, the elite, you can't mention it, but I will. There is one race that owns all the pharmaceutical companies, and these vaccines aren't safe, they aren't effective, and they aren't free. You know that you're paying for it through the increase in gas prices, the increase in food prices. You're paying for this. And it's being taken from your money and given to these pharmaceutical companies. And if you want to bring race into this, oh, if you want to call me a hater, go ahead.
Phil Campbell. Before you start, Mr. Campbell, I would also like to remind people that there are some things that your comments really need to be related to what the school board can do something about. And this was not something that we can do something about. So please have your comments with something that is within our jurisdiction. Thank you. Mr. Campbell.
Well, that's going to kind of discount what I'm about to say, too. Most of my effort in crafting words has been geared at getting people to see the difference in wills. The reason the left is the reason why people are up here, the will of the left has given them a superior advantage, and so my effort has been geared at getting people to see that. So here is what I've prepared. The success of the left is hinged on its superior will. And former communist James Burnham published a book, Suicide of the West, in 1964, dedicating it to all liberals of goodwill. I feel the same. The book asks, has the West lost the will to survive? Burnham also said that civilizations don't die, they commit suicide, and that liberalism is the ideology of Western suicide. I believe that this picture is incomplete. The hard left has been ascendant for decades by force of will because its nature drives its need to make an ideal society. Most conservatives wish to live their lives. The left wants to transform the world. It's seen in Western prosperity's downside. With some help from the left, it traded faith in God for faith in man. It discouraged thrift, encouraged selfishness and decadence, and it subsidized sloth. That trade has weakened our will by debasing standards and making truth relative. This willing dissent was aided by John Dewey's suicidal ideas. The Western sins, as others, can be measured by their distance from love. To measure love, we need a fixed standard. The farther from love, the closer to rationalizing sin against others. Slavery and treatment of indigenous people give us good examples. While the right justifies sin by ignoring absolutes, the left justifies it by denying them. Both are the same wrong. They indulge ulterior motive and they cause death. Since sin brings death, the West dies by its own hand to the extent that it abandons virtue. There was a great thinker named Franz Fanon who was a radical, but his radicalism does not mean that everything that he had to say was in error, any more than being a conservative makes everything that one says to be true. We should think about examining ourselves and heed his warning for us to repent and remember that our judges will too be judged. And I would encourage people to consider reading some of this literature because, we get this myopic view and we just think that we have all the answers and that we're right and that we discount what we view as our opposition to be in the wrong. So finally, I just say everybody stay engaged, seek good, speak truth, do justice.
Time has expired.
Thank you. Next is Jen Mellentine of Chandler.
Good evening. Recently, my husband and I moved back to Chandler after having lived in nearby cities for the last 17 years. My husband and I both grew up in Chandler, and we knew that this is where we wanted to raise our 4 children. In fact, we actually moved back to the neighborhood that I grew up in. I attended Anderson Elementary and Anderson Junior High as a kid. You would think that it would be easy to enroll my kids back into the schools that I attended, but you would be mistaken. I attended my first board meeting 2 weeks ago to find out what has been happening within the Chandler school districts. I was really disappointed after watching that first meeting. I heard about how there was a large number of students that were leaving Chandler schools to instead enroll their children in charter schools. Mr. Worth, you had responded to that information by saying that more marketing needed to be done in order to get more families to come to Chandler schools. So I guess this would be the marketing, but this last week I received the Chandler Impact newspaper and looked at the proficiency scores for the schools in my area. The proficiency rate for for junior high at Anderson was 32% for English and language arts and 20% for math. If I was sending my high schooler to Chandler High, it wouldn't be much better. It was at 32% for English and language arts and 24% in math. That's appalling. This poor performance is in desperate need of far more correction than any marketing campaign can fix. Because what exactly are you able to market if your service or product is deficient? Instead, the concern from this board seemed to be about who has a seat at a table for a board that doesn't have anything to do with the Chandler kids. If you want people to have a seat at any table in the future, provide these kids with a quality education. That's it. There's no need to brand or stereotype your students or put them into community subgroups. Just teach them the fundamentals and let them flourish. Stop focusing on all these peripheral issues. As of now, why would I want to send my most precious resources, my children, to be in your care and to pour additional hard-earned resources with my money when you're not producing results with the resources that you've already been given?
Thank you. Ruth Jones of Chandler.
I think you're going to get a bit of an echo right now. And I'd like to comment that the response to my comment earlier is galling. Because while you stand there and tell me that we have such good teachers and we have such good programs, the numbers tell a different story. Last week, I also received the latest issue of the Community Impact newspaper, and it does highlight the test scores from this last year's standardized testing. These numbers are abysmal. In our high schools, only one school scored over 61% for English language arts. 2 more high schools were below 50%, and 2 hovered right at that mark. Our math scores were even more dismal, with Chandler High not even making 25%. Only 1 school in math was above 50%. While the new high school is wonderful, it should not be the only school that makes the grade. All our students matter. These numbers rank proficiency, and they have shown a steady decline. While I know you'd like to blame this on COVID, I'm here to tell you it's more than that. Our classroom priorities have shifted, and we focus more on agendas than our students, and these numbers prove it. At Basha High, I spoke with the principal, and he proudly told me about the Student of the Month program and a table for lonely kids. It showed me that he's out of touch. I recently pointed out to him that these programs reach less than 3% of the students at the school. I educated him that while you have some good students and some that will always struggle, most students are on the bubble. These are the students you can push one way or another, but you continue to push woke agendas. You indoctrinate our students instead of lifting them up. You bring in curriculum that has nothing to do with reading and math. This board is focused on their own agendas. I've listened to you discuss the possibility of going to symposiums, because that would be fun. You should not be going anywhere until you get these numbers up. You don't need an override to increase your budget if you cannot teach our children to read and write. And to say that you have such great programs is a false expectation. You need to stop thinking about yourselves and start figuring out how to
30
help the
seconds.
children on the bubble. I chose this district for your reputation, and you haven't been living up to it. No more CRT and no more parties. Get off that dais and grab the nearest kid by the hand. Your decisions either lift them up or you watch them slip away.
Ann Adams. Please, Ann Adams.
Madam President, Mr. Nandrucci, and other board members, as a community member and a mother, I believe our tax dollars should focus first on the core education for our children, the basics, help them catch up after the learning loss over the last 2 years. They're struggling. My children are struggling. I've already pulled one out to homeschool so she could do a self-paced learning because she was getting so far behind. I have a second child with an IEP that's struggling, and it took me 4 phone calls to get help from Hamilton High School. Finally, I had to talk to the vice principal, and it was for an elective class. My son was failing without any help. I was next told, well, we can't promise that your child will pass. And I'm like, well, shouldn't that be your goal? Shouldn't that be your number one goal? And shouldn't you be on it when a child's not passing such a simple class? Anyway, that's just a personal experience recently. Please continue to respect our parent rights. We have the Bill of Rights there for a reason. I support teachers. I feel like they should be next in line and their support staff, and then pay for the necessities. But the rest of it, we just need to let it go. We need to spend our money in better places. I respectfully request that CUSD not allocate any tax funds to ASBA or the NSBA for dues or any other expenses. A no will save us thousands. 22 states have already done this. If you do this, you're recognizing that parents matter, children matter, and we want to see you do this, and you have a choice. Second, I request for full transparency and increased transparency. You've had 4 requests from one of our mothers to provide the amount of money spent on regulations guiding individuals and groups who've engaged as lobbyists for CUSD for the last 10 years. I've looked through hundreds of thousands and tens of thousands of dollars used in campaign donations, including ASBA, AEA, NEA, Planned Parenthood, and other highly politicized organizations. This is supposed to be a non-political role that you're sitting in, and I don't like all the politics involved in our schools, so I just want to be able to see those numbers and understand those, and 4 requests should be more than enough to get that information out of the schools. Again, just to reiterate, let's just get back to the basics, help these kids get caught up, and respect our individual rights as parents. Thank you.
Thank you. Brandy Reese. Brandy Reese. From Gilbert.
Good evening. A little bit of insight, I think, needs to be shared. I'm not a teacher. I sometimes get lumped in because of the strong stance I have in public schools, but I'm not. One visit to my daughter's classroom as a volunteer quickly affirmed that that was just not the place for me. I've seen and heard a lot from our educators recently, and I have a sense of what they might be going through, but it's only a sense because I don't work in the classroom 50 hours a week like they do. I'm not responsible for managing classrooms overstuffed with students, and I've never seen what I'm seeing right now from our educators. I absolutely feel it coming off them. I see how tired and demoralized they are, and not just our teachers, the principals, the support staff, superintendents are also exhausted, and I imagine you all are too. For those that speak about schools and educators while lacking the experience to know what's happening, I'll share mine. They're done with us. Some will leave now, some will leave later, and some will stay, but all school employees are being harmed. We've pushed this too far, and before some even start, no, they didn't know what they were getting into. Tell me how they could have possibly known. Their community would threaten them with politicians, school boards, or superintendents make decisions that were controversial. that they would be forced to take abuse for teaching a curriculum they weren't teaching, and most had never even heard of. Or a pandemic would arrive, forcing them to address trauma in children like we've never seen. Behaviors are skyrocketing, parents are threatening school officials, police presence at school board meetings has become widespread. Children in poverty are now also children in chaos. Evictions and joblessness have been on the rise, and those children are bringing all that trauma to school, and it shows. Our kids are suffering, and the only place to work that trauma out is in school. Lawmakers and talking heads with ulterior motives looking to score fundraising dollars and clout from conspiracy theorists are using our schools as punching bags, resulting in an even faster defunding process than we've ever seen, and policy decisions that are made in fiction, not the reality in our classrooms. Tell me how teachers could have known we'd ask them to do this. Where was the notice sent about this? Tell me where when we were honest with them about this. We weren't. We didn't tell them the truth, and when they started sharing their concerns, even prior to COVID, these concerns were ignored, and teachers were guilted back into going into their classrooms for the kids. What we've done to our schools over the past decade or so is going to cost us. You can tell your lawmakers to back off, leave our schools alone. Tell them the truth. Schools aren't a political tool for them, and you won't stand for it. Tell them to address the needs, fully fund our schools, and stop manipulating the public and villainizing our educators. Thank you.
Thank you. That is the end of our citizens' comments for this evening. And we are going to take just a quick break for those who have necessities to deal with. 3 minutes. 3 minutes. All right. We're going to continue with our consent agenda. Mr. Narducci.
President Moslin, this is a very short consent agenda for this evening. So first we have out-of-state student travel pre-planning. Out-of-state field trips pre-planning forms for Castile High School, Hamilton High School, and Perry High School are provided. Following the governing board approval, Dr. Gilbert will monitor trip arrangements before providing final approval for these high school trips. The governing board will receive a summary of the final travel arrangements quarterly. Field trip approval will be determined on a case-by-case basis and will be contingent upon health guidelines in the areas the students are going. Also under 9.02, monetary gifts, we request approval of the monetary gifts generously donated by Chandler schools totaling $5,595.02. And under 9.03, donations, we request approval of the items generously donated to Chandler schools totaling $10,444.33. And then also our last one for consent is human resources, employment separation and compensation that's attached to your documents.
Thank you, Mr. Narducci. Could I please get a motion to approve?
Madam President, I would like to make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as presented by Mr. Narducci.
Second.
I'll second. Thank you. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Motion carries. Next, we're going to begin with our action items. We have a relatively long action item section this evening. Our first is elementary school playground refresh. Mr. Fletcher.
Madam President, members of the board, as part of the 2019 bond, playgrounds at elementary schools were to be updated. We've broken this project into 3 phases. Phase 1, pre-1990 schools. That phase will be coming to a close within the next 30 to 60 days. Phase 2, 1990 to 2005, and Phase 3, 2005 to current. On February 24th, 2021, the governing board approved the guaranteed maximum price for Phase 1. As Phase 1 is nearing completion, it's time to move forward with Phase 2. The schools involved are Basha Elementary, Bogle Junior High with a special education playground, Bologna Elementary, Connolly Elementary, Hull Elementary, Jacobson Elementary, CTA Liberty Elementary, Santan Elementary, Sanborn Elementary, and Tarwater Elementary. Core Construction is the general contractor of record and has submitted a guaranteed maximum price of $4,423,938. The district has evaluated this guaranteed maximum price and finds it fair and reasonable in the current market. We recommend approval of core construction for a guaranteed maximum price of $4,423,938 for the playground refresh at the 10 schools listed above.
Thank you, Mr. Fletcher. Could I please get a motion?
Madam President, I'd like to move that we approve the Phase 2 of the elementary school refresh per Mr. Fletcher's presentation.
I'll second it.
Are there any questions for Mr. Fletcher? Yes,
I have
Mr.
one.
Olive.
You said Connolly?
Correct.
Okay, we have, on our agenda, we have Basha, Bogle, Bologna, Hull, Jacobson, Liberty, Santanel, and Sanborn and Tarwater.
I just noticed that on our printed agenda, Connolly was omitted, but on the board docs
I'm looking at the
agenda-
printed one. So
Okay.
it's supposed to be,
There's 10 sites.
okay. That was it for me.
Okay. Are there any other questions? And most of these are, or all of these are these playgrounds were put in between 1990 and 2005? Is that correct? For
That is
Phase 2?
correct.
Okay. So it sounds like they definitely can use the
There are
refresh.
some very aged playground equipment out there, yes.
Okay. Are we planning on changing like a lot of the equipment I mean, as in changing the type or the, like, are there still going to be like swing sets wherever they have swing sets and climbing things where
We
climbing
work with
things
each school to see what the needs are. Some are full replacements, some are repairs, some are including new grading, new curbing to keep the 5-bar in it. So it's a little different at every facility, but the playground structures are pretty
Playground.
typical.
Okay.
Every like 3 or 4 years, they change the rules about playground structures and what's acceptable to the insurance people and what isn't.
Okay.
So they actually do change them for, little things about them from time to time.
Okay. If we're ready to, Ms. Love, did you have any questions?
I did not, no.
Okay. So if there are no more questions or comments, all those in favor of the elementary school playground refresh, please say aye.
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 The motion carries. Mr. Fletcher, the next one is yours, with the district partnership with Intel and Dell Technology.
Madam President, members of the board, in March of 2021, the Chandler Unified School District was approached to participate in a 3-way partnership with Intel, Dell, and the district. The partnership resulted in a proof of concept that would bring best practices and an integrated solution to education technology. The proof of concept would address the digital divide, information technology resourcing, financing, and student needs. As part of the proof of concept, the district would like to implement a 1-to-1 program at Chandler High School. And as a part of that proof of concept, CUSD will need to purchase 4,000 devices from Dell Technologies. The cost is $737.77 per device, which includes etching, which identifies the product as a Chandler School District, multi-pack deployment, multiple devices in one carton, connecting and configuration, an annual tune-up done by Dell, 4 years of pro support tickets, and 185 professional learning hours. This proof of concept includes a $1.6 million donation in hardware and services from Intel and Dell. The purchase will be made using the State of Arizona contract. Do you want me to read that whole number? Which complies with all school procurement rules. We request governing board approval in the amount of $2,951,085.11 for the purchase of 4,000 devices from Dell Technologies.
Thank you, Mr. Fletcher. Could I please get a motion?
Madam President, I'd like to move to purchase computers from Dell per Mr. Fletcher's presentation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Are there any questions? I know we had a significant study session on this whole program earlier this evening, and it's kind of a exciting program. So are there any other questions? Ms. Love?
No, not at this time.
Okay. If there's no other comments or questions, we'll go ahead and vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Our next is flooring at Anderson Junior High School, Bogle Junior High School, and Knox Gifted Academy. And I believe that has to be Mr. Fletcher again.
Of course. Madam President, members of the board, we are recommending approval that the flooring at Anderson Junior High School, Bogle Junior High School, and Knox Gifted Academy be replaced this upcoming summer. The flooring at these sites were last replaced as follows: Anderson Junior High 2001, Bogle Junior High School 2000, Knox Gifted Academy 2001. The project includes carpet, VCT, cove base, sealed concrete, and demolition. The cost per campus is listed for you. The total contract amount is $797,871.53. The district would contract with Wholesale Floors through a 1 GPA contract, 18-19 PV, which complies with all state procurement rules. We recommend approval of Wholesale Floors for the flooring project at Anderson Junior, Bogle Junior, and Knox Gifted Academy in the amount of $797,871.53.
Thank you, Mr. Fletcher. Could I please get a motion?
Madam President, I would like to move that we approve of the flooring at Anderson Junior High School, Bogle Junior High, and Knox Gifted Academy per Mr. Fletcher's presentation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? So I just have one. So this carpeting and the flooring is over 20 years old, or will be over 20 years old by the time we replace all this in the summer. Okay.
I read into the detail of it. It looks like we're actually getting rid of some flooring and getting some more ground concrete, so it'll...
In the classroom areas in front of the sinks, we're going to pull the VCT, polish it, and seal it, the concrete, so that we're getting out of the VCT business in the classrooms.
That's probably a good thing.
We would agree.
All right. Ms. Love, any questions?
No.
Okay. All those in favor of this, of replacing the flooring at Anderson Junior High, Bogle Junior High, and Knox Gifted Academy, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next is cafe renovation, Perry High School and Arizona College Prep Middle School. Mrs. Berry.
Madam President, members of the board, the Food and Nutrition Department would like to renovate, upgrade the following sites: Perry High School and Arizona College Preparatory Middle School. The scope of work for each site is attached. If approved, construction will commence over spring break of 2022. The district is using Chase Building Team for this project. Their services will be procured through 1 GPA procurement cooperative, which complies with all school procurement requirements. The district and Chase Building Team have negotiated a contract amount of $620,625, which is a fair and reasonable price. The Food and Nutrition Department will fund this project through their operations budget. Recommend approval of Chase Building Team for the cafe renovations upgrades in the amount of $620,625.
Thank you, Mrs. Berry. Could I please get a motion?
Madam President, I would like to move that we approve the cafe renovation at Perry High School and Arizona College Prep Middle School per Mrs. Berry's presentation.
Second.
Okay. Any questions?
I just want to say thank you for all the detailed images. It gives me a picture of like what this actually is rather than just in words. So
Great. Welcome. That was actually Frank and Jenny.
All right.
Is this is 1 GPA, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Another question. This is also including all of the equipment that are going into these lines, not just the renovations and other work. Turnkey solution. Okay, terrific. Any other questions? Ms. Love?
No.
Okay, thank you. All those, so we'll go ahead and vote. All those in favor of the cafe renovations at Perry High School and Arizona College Prep Middle School, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. We also, our next one is also Mrs. Berry, cafe renovation at Basha High School and Castile High School.
Madam President, members of the board, the Food and Nutrition Department would like to renovate, upgrade the following sites. Basha High School, Castile High School. The scope of work for each site is attached. If approved, construction will commence over spring break also of 2022. The district is using Chase Building Team for this project also. Their services will be procured also through one GPA through the purchasing cooperative, which complies with all school procurement requirements. The district and Chase Building Team have negotiated a contract amount of $577,496, which is fair and a reasonable price. The Food and Nutrition Department will fund this project through, again, their operations budget. Recommend approval of Chase Building Team for cafe renovations upgrades in the amount of $577,496. So again, all of these projects are to help with the efficiency of our high schools, to help make sure that our students can get through those lines and can help with that so that we can serve those students that are in need of food for lunch every day and breakfast.
Thank you, Mrs. Berry. Could I please get a motion?
Madam President, I would like to move that we approve the cafe renovation at Basha High School and Castile High School per Mrs. Berry's presentation.
Second.
Any questions or discussion?
Castile's pretty new. Are they making it so they can move more people through? I know it was designed for 1,200 kids, and now it's probably got more, right?
Yes, that's exactly what it's for. It's efficiencies, being able to serve more students.
And aren't these all more of kind of like the grab-and-go type location or things rather than having somebody serve them into a tray or fix it right there in a line like we used to have with the cafeterias?
Great questions, absolutely. As you've seen, you can go into a lot of our campuses and see actually the partnership with Airmark has been fantastic over the last, this is our 5th year. We've done a number of upgrades throughout our facilities to help with efficiencies and to be able to serve more students in a faster process and time frame. We need to still improve that. So there's a lot of different things we've improved throughout our schools, and you'll see more and more as it comes this summer and then into next year.
And a quick question, are we seeing an increase in our participation for student lunches and meals? I see vigorous head nodding. Okay.
Massive increase in participation.
One thing I just wanted to add, because I know Jenny's here, our food service director, is the quality of product also. The efficiencies are built too, but the quality of product is also preserved when you can move through that quicker as well. So I just don't want everybody to think it's about efficiency of services, but it's also the high quality of food that's offered to our students. Is that correct, Jenny?
Thank you. All right, are there any other questions? All right, if not, we'll go ahead and vote. All those in favor of the cafe renovations at Basha High School and Castile High School, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Our next is the purchase of activity buses. Mrs. Berry.
Madam President, members of the board, after reviewing the district's student transportation fleet, administration is recommending the purchase of 5 additional activity buses to help meet the growing needs of routes, sports, clubs, and school activities. With the challenges Chandler and the rest of the nation are facing attracting CDL drivers, activity buses give us the flexibility to support our district needs with non-CDL drivers. These 5 14-passenger activity buses are less costly to maintain and operate as well. All vehicles will be purchased through the Mojave Education Services Cooperative, which complies with all applicable procurement rules, and were selected based on price, inventory, and life cycle costs. So there's 5 2022 Microbird G5s. Their cost is $89,933.12. The total is $419,665.61. We're going to use those for general education, but also could use those for sports, routes, school activities, etc. So recommend approval to purchase 5 activity buses for a total of $419,665.61, utilizing the Mojave Contract 18F-CSBS-0904 to Canyon State Bus Sales.
Thank you, Mrs. Berry. Could I please get a motion?
I move that we purchase 5 additional activity buses.
Second.
Are there any questions or discussion?
None that I didn't ask before, so.
Are all of these, this is probably a yes, but I just want to confirm, are all of these have seatbelts for all the students since they're a smaller bus size? And they are required to be utilizing them for every trip?
Yes.
I guess the second question is, how long is the lead time on delivery of these with so many supply chain issues that we've been seeing lately?
Sure, we will confirm it once we do the purchase order, but it definitely has taken a few months to receive these. Our buses are back ordered by about 4 to 5 months, but it's taking longer to receive these than projected originally.
Okay.
But I think that's everywhere right now. Construction companies are having a hard time finding pickups. There's definitely a supply chain problem.
Agreed.
Mrs. Marsden, most vendors won't give us a delivery time until they have the order in hand and they can get it into their production cycle.
Okay. If there's no other questions or comments, all those in favor of approving the purchases of 5 activity buses, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. Our next is the National School Boards Association National Connection Fees. And this was moved from our consent agenda at last meeting to our action agenda for this meeting, because there were definitely some questions on this. So it's request approval of the National School Boards Association National Connection Fees for the period of January 1 to December 31st, 2022 for $8,620. The invoice is attached, and as I said, it's for 2022. Could I please get a motion?
Madam President, I move approval of 10.07, the 2022 National School Board Association National Connection Fees of $8,620.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we'll have some.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion on this?
I did ask about what we've used this for in the past, and it turns out as far as anybody was able to tell me in the past, when people have gone to the national convention, they give a discount on the ticket for the national convention, and that's the only benefit that I found in paying this. And so in the last five years or a bunch of years, I'm told that not many people have been going to this convention.
Don't think anyone has actually gone in probably 4 or 5 years, from my recollection. I think you also get, I think each board member gets a National School Boards Journal magazine on a quarterly basis or something like that. So that's about it.
And I think also it's required if you want to be part of ASBA to get the policy revisions, you need to be part of NSBA, at least from what I read. So that's not true anymore? Can you give me?
I asked about that.
Yeah. So I heard from another source, not from you, Donna, but from someone else, that that's still true. So
to be on the policy services for ASBA, you have to pay ASBA.
Right.
But NSBA does, my resources said that you didn't have to be a part of NSBA to get ASBA policies.
But Frank, did you have?
ASBA reviews our state legislative policies that come to us, and so we utilize that. We'd have to have a ton of attorneys here that would be employed by us to do that provision. NSBA does not do that review of policy at all, so it's my understanding that you can be in one without the other, and that they aren't mutually inclusive of each other.
Are there any other questions, Ms. Love, or comments?
I guess my question is like, I know that Mr. Olive, this was one that you pulled to get more clarification, but what would be the purpose of leaving the NSBA?
So we don't have to give them any money.
But we also get trainings through them. I sit on the National Black Council with the NSBA. So we do have representation with the NSBA from our own district.
But you're part of that due to ASBA, correct?
No, I was elected through our membership with NSBA. Prior to me, Board Member Dave Evans held that position. This is a national seat. When he was not elected to this term, it went to me.
Okay.
So prior to that, Mr. Evans was the voice on the NSBA, and he was also the president of the NSBA.
You don't mean complete NSBA? He was not the president? Okay.
He was the president of the National Black Caucus, NSBA. So with that, he sat on the NSBA board for many years. So Chandler has always had representation at the national level to some degree. I don't sit on their board, but I sit on their council, and we do have Arizona representation as a president on the NSBA. And so Chandler concerns, like any other state concerns, get to the NSBA.
All right.
So essentially, it's, we as Chandler have direct access to National School Board Association, and we impact national policy just by being at the table.
But unless you were, if you weren't the Arizona Black Caucus president, you would not have been able to even run for the National Black Caucus, correct?
That's not true. Mr. Evans was not the Black Alliance president when he joined the caucus. He had the term out, but anybody could run. As a matter of fact, the current president actually ran and challenged David from the floor. And so you don't have to have any seats within the Black Alliance to be on the Black Council.
Right.
I got the seat because Mr. Evans represented us so beautifully, and he recommended me for that seat for the Black Council.
Okay. Do we have any comments or discussion? All right. I guess we are ready for a vote.
So I guess I just,
okay.
I'm okay with passing on this if it is verified through ASBA, because we save a lot of money by using ASBA and having them revise the policies and align it rather than having pay legal contract fees for that. So as long as that we make sure that if that changes and we can't be part of ASBA because of this, then I'd like to revisit this to bring it up at the next meeting if that becomes an issue.
Since these aren't due until January 1st anyway, we would have time to revisit, be able to do that. So are we ready to, I guess we're ready to vote. All those in favor of approving the National School Boards Association National Connection Fees for next year, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Nay.
Nay.
Nay, I guess is the best way to say it.
And I'll abstain because I just don't know, why I heard one side, so I'll wait on that. But
Okay. So the motion does not carry. Our next, we'll go through our information items. We have our first quarter technology report, and I do see that there was, this is very similar to the report that we had last time, but I do see that there has been an extended cost column added to the warehouse technology report portion to identify the actual totals of what was purchased at each site. Are there any questions on technology reports? All right, we'll move on to student activity, auxiliary operations, and tax credit reports. Oh, I guess, Mr. Fletcher, I should have asked you to come to do this one, to do that one. I'm sorry.
Madam President, the first quarter technology report is presented for your information.
Thank you. And Mrs. Berry.
Madam President, members of the board, the student activities auxiliary tax credit reports for the months ending July of 2021 through September of 2021 are provided for your review. Also for your review are the auxiliary operations and tax credit reports for the months ending July 21st and August 21st that were not previously provided during the encumbrance period. One thing you're going to see is a few negatives on a couple of accounts, and we're waiting on paperwork to move from one account to another as they get coded sometimes, where they'll code out of a tax credit instead of an auxiliary, or a student activity instead of a tax credit. So there will be a few of those. Melissa Branting and her team have done a great job of always accounting for these, tracking them, and then making the adjustments every month.
All right. Thank you. Are there any questions on our reports?
I do have a question that's not related to your report per se. But if there's one thing that high school and junior high sponsors dread, it's trying to maneuver the paperwork to pay for things for your club, right? And I was wondering if there's any way to influence and request from the state legislature if we could look at that and streamline that process rather than making it so cumbersome for the staff who are volunteering their time to have to go jump through all these hoops with these different kinds of accounts that they are making us track in different ways, and makes much more work on your office too, I would imagine, to sort that and rectify it when it's mistakenly misappropriated from tax credit versus, whatever. So I don't know what that looks like. Do you have any suggestions on how we could try to improve that process and make it easier on all those folks who are just trying to do right by kids and are having to jump through all these hoops?
That's actually a great suggestion. We can definitely look into that. I can ask a couple other experts who are good at that too. I know that Heinfeld and Meach helps. They put a lot of trainings together because we're constantly sending people to student activity trainings. And there is a ton to understand between all the different funding sources. So we can definitely look at that. We'll bring up some options and we'll get back to you.
You don't sound hopeful, but yeah, thank you for
We'll try. I'm sorry it's so complicated.
For being honest, I appreciate it.
I agree with you, though. I totally agree with you.
All right. Private day tuition expenditures. I believe that's Dr. Gilbert.
Madam President, members of the board, the list of private day school tuition expenditures for the first quarter of the 2021-2022 school year is provided for your review.
Dr. Gilbert, is this kind of our normal amount for the first quarter, or is it high or low, or what's the assessment on that?
In talking to Dr. Marshall, it is normal for our first quarter, but what we are seeing is even though we have been working hard to have less students in private day, the prices are going up. So although we have less students in private day, and we're having more students come back to our program, as well as having additional students come to our program, we're still seeing that the price is going up. With that, I also like to share with Ms. Bruner, I have been working with Dr. Marshall so that we can give you a report of kind of what it looks like now that we have our own program within the district to look at what we're doing there.
Thank you so much. I didn't want to sound like a broken record.
No, we've had our conversations, and now that we've gone through at least first quarter and give you some more information, we're working on that as well.
Thank you so much.
Well, and I will also say, with the number of years that I've been on the board, I have watched this board-approved amount go up up every year, almost every year, and it has, our special education students definitely have a lot of additional needs, which aren't cheap, so. And I guess there's really nothing we can do about when the private schools that we really need to send our children to are charging more. So, thank you. Board agenda roadmap is next. Our next meeting, we will. Oh gosh, it's already October. Almost the end of October. Sorry. We only have one meeting in November, and that will be November 10th. Things are pretty quiet between now and then, so Wednesday, November 10th is the next meeting. Are there any other comments or questions on the roadmap? Okay.
Just
Our
keep an eye on it.
superintendent's comments.
Ms. Musman, we have added a few study sessions that are coming up.
Mhm.
We wanted to get as many of those in to show some of our programs. We did add a CTE program that's coming up in February, so if we just keep looking at that, we're going to keep adding some study sessions to get more of our programming in front of the board and the public as well.
Thank you.
My comments?
Mr. Narducci, your
Sure.
comments.
Thank you, Ms. Marsden. Many of you met our host families and our students, our international students that are here, our foreign exchange students. It's great to hear, to meet with them out in the reception and hear how they've been accepted at our schools, as well as how they're flourishing at our schools, and the interesting part of asking them which school systems they enjoy better, and they definitely enjoy the Chandler schools and the American schools that they're in. I want to also thank our community that actually extend themselves to service to host our families. Thank you, Mr. Olive, also for being a host family as well. You and your wife and your daughter were here with your host daughter, and just, it's great to see the connections that you have made. Students at Tarwater Elementary School had quite a unique experience today. This morning they communicated with United States astronaut Shane Kimbrough, who was aboard the International Space Station. This once-in-a-lifetime experience involved a lot of coordination to live stream this event with the International Space Station, which took place at approximately 11:31. You cannot mess with NASA. They have exactly, it was to the second. Our K-6 students had 10 minutes to ask questions. Principal Diane Hale, with a partnership that included the amateur radio on the ISS, which is the International Space Station, and NXP, which is a local technology, their ham radio club, made this possible. If individuals want to view the event, it'll be archived on the Chandler Unified YouTube channel. In addition to look for articles, I know we have a reporter here, look for articles written by our Tarwater students that will appear in the local publications, because this was a big writing piece for students to be able to publish the event and their work that they did on space. They were the only school in Arizona selected to participate this year. It's such a great experience. We're going to invite Tarwater students and staff in our November meeting to discuss all the preparation and the experience itself. Again, a special thank you to our ham radio experts at NXP, and also to our own Michael Holland, who's in the back room here, and our Chandler Educational TV crew. They all rocked it today by making sure things were up and running, and that's a hard task to make sure you contact an International Space Station, and they were very successful. We're also proud of Dr. Marshall, her team, and our Student Services Center, which recently earned All-Star status by the Arizona Department of Education Exceptional Student Services Division. All-Star status is given to districts that meet or exceed the statewide participation rate and engagement rate. CUSD's class of 2020, students with disabilities exceeded the statewide participation rate at a 91% participation rate and 82.5% engagement rate, which also exceeds the state rate, meaning that our students were meeting their transition plans, which is very important beyond high school. This is in large part due to our transition specialists at each of our high schools and their ability to connect with families and students to check in on them a year later to ensure that they're successful in that transition. So congratulations, Dr. Marshall, that great honor. Speaking of partnerships, we've been actively participating with the Center for the Future of Arizona in a program called Participatory participatory budgeting. This is where our students actually participate in solving problems at their school by creating the budget, resolving the issues, and then measuring the outcomes. The program was recognized yesterday with a 2021 ASU President's Award. Our director, Ms. Brene Sweden, was down there to participate. We are the second district partner with the Center for the Future of Arizona Schools. The participatory budget project enables our students to decide together how to spend public money. These participatory budgeting process deepen democracy, build stronger communities, and make public budgets more equitable and effective, and give our students a good understanding as to how that works. With the holidays right around the corner, our Chandler Care Center is busy preparing for its Thanksgiving Family Assistance Program scheduled for Saturday, November 20th. Many of you know that our Chandler Care Center is a district-provided resource to our community. We are accepting whole frozen turkeys. That's whole, I know you're writing this down, whole frozen turkeys, 2-pound bags of rice, and pinto beans, dry pinto beans, not the wet ones, but the dry ones. Canned vegetables, canned fruit, soup, cake mix and frosting, instant mashed potatoes, side dishes, and paper goods as they prepare to give families the making for a complete Thanksgiving dinner. Many of our schools do community service projects, and I noticed when I was at Payne Junior High School today, early this morning, I had seen boxes collected by the staff and students there that were for the Care Center. So I appreciate our school's efforts to help take care of our community. Lastly, thanks for our Chandler community for their generous giving to the Chandler Education Foundation's annual Cash for Classrooms campaign. We spent the past few weeks awarding grants with Jen Hewitt, our executive director, to increase engagement in learning. Many exciting project grants were awarded. And again, we want to thank our community for the support of our teachers and the impact of our students. These grants go to provide kids experience that they might not normally get, and then helps the schools to utilize their funds better as well. So we thank our community for that. And I just want to say a special thank you for the 2 presentations today. Anderson L. Looking at the IB program and PYP program to provide more rigor. Individuals that may not have been here for the 2 study sessions is wonderful, and to see their staff behind it and their principal motivated and excited about student achievement and working directly with that through the IB program and a pathway to Chandler High's IB program is going to be exciting. And then also our Future Ready Schools movement with our ensuring that our students are moving more towards utilizing technology appropriately through your allocation of the funding today also. So we'll give you updates on both of those as we go through the year as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Narducci. Now it's time for board member comments. Does anyone have anything they'd like to say? Ms. Love? Are you there?
No.
Okay.
I don't have anything.
Okay. Ms. Brunner, Mr. Olive?
I had one thing I didn't have a chance to comment before when our exchange students were here. We're a host family, and all the host families go, do a lot for those kids. And it'd be nicer if we sent more kids, from Chandler School District to other places. It's not something that we do very much. When I was a kid, in my family, we had exchange students 2-3 times, and then I actually went and was an exchange student in Guatemala when I was in high school. And it's a big impact on your life when you go as a troublesome teenager and go to a third world country for a little while. It puts things in perspective and really changes you around a little bit. So those host families are really doing a service to the kids, but they're also doing a service to all of us, because this is something that the State Department has promoted for since the 50s. Those are ambassadors, and those kids are always going to think about things and understand things from an American perspective for the rest of their lives.
Thank you, Mr. Olive. We too had a short-term foreign exchange student, and our particular program was one where that foreign exchange student came to us, and then the following year, our student went to his house. And it was a very interesting exchange, but I will say it has created friendships that have lasted a long time already. So, Mr. Worth, did you have anything to say this evening?
Yes, I think most of the taxpayers have received their tax bills for their mortgage, and they would notice that the property taxes that you're paying are less this year than they were last year. So it's a compliment to the district.
Thank you. I just want to thank Mr. Olive for running the meeting in my absence. I do apologize for being late this evening, and I do appreciate you taking over, Jason, and running a good meeting. Thank you. With that, this meeting is adjourned.